The old Chevy Impala sat rusting behind the Wexler house for nearly 15 years. Its once midnight blue paint had faded to a ghostly gray, its chrome eaten away by time and rain. Ivy had crept up the tires like slow, green fingers, clutching at the car as if the earth itself wanted to keep it buried. Everyone in the small town of Wraith Hollow knew that car. They whispered about it the night the owner, George Wexler, was murdered just a few feet away from it, and how the killer was never caught. Some said the Impala was cursed. Others said that on moonless nights, you could hear the engine rumble softly, as though it were dreaming. But George's son, Ethan, didn't believe in ghost stories. He was only 8 when his father died, and now, at 23, he had returned to the old house after his mother's passing, ready to sell it and leave Wraith Hollow for good. The car was just a hunk of metal, he told himself, an artifact of a tragedy best forgotten. Still, every night, from his bedroom window, he found his eyes drawn to it. The car sat motionless under the skeletal branches of the oak tree. Even in the dark, the windshield seemed to reflect more than moonlight it seemed to watch. The first night Ethan stayed alone in the house, he couldn't sleep. The floorboards creaked as though the place itself exhaled. Outside, the wind hissed through the grass, and in the distance, a thunderstorm rolled in. Just as he was drifting into uneasy dreams, a low sound crawled through the air. Ethan's eyes snapped open. It sounded like an engine turning over once, then stopping. He sat up, staring out the rain-streaked window. The Impala's headlights, dead for over a decade, flickered faintly, like the blink of a dying eye. Then darkness again. He told himself it was lightning. It had to be lightning. But lightning didn't smell like gasoline. The next morning, Ethan went out to check. The grass was wet, the air heavy with the scent of rain and rust. When he reached the Impala, he froze. There were tire marks in the mud, fresh ones leading from the back wheels toward the old gravel path that ran behind the house. He crouched, touching the mud, still soft. "No," he whispered, "that's impossible." The car's keys had been locked inside since his father's death. Ethan tried the handle. The door clicked open. The stale air that spilled out smelled of leather, oil, and something faintly metallic blood. Maybe. On the driver's seat lay a keychain, a small silver wolf, his father's lucky charm. Ethan knew it shouldn't be there. He'd seen it sealed in a plastic evidence bag at the sheriff's office years ago. He backed away slowly, his heart hammering. The door shut by itself. That night, Ethan couldn't help himself. He went online, searching for old newspaper clippings about his father's death. George Wexler, local mechanic, found dead near his Impala. Blunt force trauma to the head. No fingerprints, no weapon, no witnesses. Except maybe the car, Ethan thought grimly. Around midnight, he heard it again, the same low growl, rising and fading like breath. He looked outside. The Impala's headlights blinked twice. Then something strange happened. The radio inside the car turned on. Static hissed, then a faint voice emerged, warped and distant. "Ethan," he stumbled back, knocking over his chair. The voice was his father's. "Find him." Ethan's pulse thudded in his ears. The static surged, then cut out. The car fell silent once more, as if nothing had happened. But he couldn't ignore it anymore. The Impala remembered. 3 nights later, the wind died. No crickets, no leaves rustling, just silence so thick Ethan could hear his heartbeat. He sat at the window, staring at the car. The moon was a pale coin, barely lighting the yard. Then, without warning, the Impala's headlights flared to life. The ignition turned with a sharp click, and the engine roared, coughing dust and fire into the cold air. Ethan froze, transfixed. The driver's door opened. No one was there. The car rolled forward, slow at first, then faster, its wheels crunching through gravel. It moved down the path toward the main road, its taillights glowing like burning eyes. Ethan ran outside, calling after it. "Dad's car, stop." But the Impala didn't stop. It turned left, toward the town, toward the place where George Wexler had been killed. The Impala glided through Wraith Hollow's sleeping streets, its headlights slicing through fog. It seemed to know where it was going. It stopped in front of Miller's garage, an old repair shop now run by a man named Calvin Miller. Calvin had been George's apprentice once. Rumor said he was the last person to see George alive. Inside, a light flickered on. Calvin stepped out, older, balding, wiping grease from his hands. He squinted into the night. What the who's out there? The Impala's engine revved in answer. Calvin took a step closer, confusion twisting into fear. No, that's not possible. I scrapped you years ago. The headlights blazed. George, Calvin whispered. Oh God, George, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. The Impala screamed. The tires tore at the ground, launching the car forward. The impact was brutal metal against flesh, the shatter of glass, the crunch of bone. When the car finally stopped, Calvin Miller lay broken against the wall, his lifeless eyes staring at the vehicle that had come for him. Back at the Wexler house, Ethan stood at the window, trembling. He had watched it all. The car had returned, its engine cooling with faint metallic ticks. Its grille was dented. A smear of red glistened on the bumper. The car parked itself neatly, as if nothing had happened, and its headlights dimmed one last time. Ethan couldn't breathe. The truth hit him like a blow. The Impala had found his father's killer and avenged him. But as he watched, something else happened, something that made his blood run cold. The car's front door creaked open again. Inside, on the driver's seat, a faint shape shimmered like smoke, forming a figure. For a moment, Ethan thought he saw his father's face, smiling sadly. Then it dissolved into the night air. The car's radio clicked on again. Static. Then a whisper. Take care of her, son. The headlights blinked twice, one final farewell, and then went dark. Morning came. The police found Calvin Miller's body at the garage. They called it a hit and run. No witnesses, no tracks, no suspect. Ethan didn't tell them what he saw. Who would believe it? He sold the house 2 weeks later, but he couldn't bring himself to sell the Impala. He had it towed to a new garage, cleaned and restored. The engine ran smooth, too smooth for a car that had been dead 15 years. Sometimes, on quiet nights, Ethan sits behind the wheel and listens. The radio hums faintly, and he feels a warmth in the air, like a hand on his shoulder. The Impala doesn't move anymore unless it needs to. And in Wraith Hollow, when fog settles and thunder rolls, people still whisper about the car that hunts in the dark. Because some engines never die. They just wait for the justice.